Josh Allen's the kind of quarterback that can win not one, not two, but 3 Super Bowls. McDermott's a good man and a good coach, but the Bills kept finding ways to lose. The 13-second loss to Kansas City. Saturday, there's 5 turnovers and Bo Nix up and down the field, 300-plus yards. I mean, there was the tush push last year. They couldn't get that right. The last 3 years, Buffalo has lost fourth-quarter leads in all games. All of their losses, they lost fourth-quarter leads. It was time. Not quite buttoned up. The general manager, in my opinion, Brandon Beane, more of a cap guy than a personnel guy, hasn't done McDermott any favors. The wide receiver core is mostly anemic. There are no Pro Bowlers on the defensive side. Even James Cook, Josh Allen's best teammate, leads all running backs in fumbles. But Saturday wasn't a loss. It was a reckoning. It felt different. The locker room was 55 broken men. McDermott, mad at the officiating. I get it. But when John Elway was in Denver, they moved off Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves had been to 3 Super Bowls. Dan Reeves was a great coach, but not great enough for John Elway's talent. And Sean McDermott, again, 8 playoff wins. That is the most ever in league history by any coach that hasn't appeared in a Super Bowl. He's a coach. He's a good coach. I'll be honest. I think he would go to the Raiders and get that act figured out really quickly. I'd hire him in 1 second in Las Vegas. But each loss hurt more. Each loss mounted. 13-second loss. Can't get the tush push right. Blowing fourth-quarter leads. Saturday, Bo Nix kind of did what he wanted. 5 turnovers on offense. And it feels like Josh Allen so often is pressing to put on a cape, get in a phone booth, come out and make a play to overcome his lack of receiving help, or a defense that can be good at times, but isn't special, not as good as the Rams, not even as good as the injury-plagued Niners, certainly not Seattle or Houston. So this is a great job. I'm sitting here this morning thinking John Harbaugh and Kevin Stefanski are probably checking their contracts to make sure the ink is dry. But over the starting in 2020 until today, they're second in the NFL in wins, first in points per game, first in point differential. A lot of it's Josh Allen. Maybe most of it's Josh Allen. You can't go Mike McCarthy. His teams, like McDermott, feel like they're not quite buttoned up. They shrink in the playoffs. Can't go McCarthy. More of the same. Jeff Hafley, Jesse Mintor, great defensive coordinators, but we want to go with a defensive coach? How about somebody that's proven? In my opinion, Brian Daboll won a playoff game with Daniel Jones, former offensive coordinator that really took Josh Allen to the next level. So Sean McDermott's got 8 playoff wins. You can do a lot worse than Sean McDermott.
Indeed. This is precisely the reason, as you are aware, that individuals continuously pose the question to me regarding which candidate I believed various organizations should appoint, or which coaching staff certain teams ought to assemble. My consistent response was one of caution, emphasizing the necessity of patience. The landscape was uncertain. I had no insight into which personnel would be on the market, nor which positions would become vacant. Consider this analogy. If a coach like Brian Daboll were presented with the option of serving as the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles or ascending to the head coaching role for the Buffalo Bills, the choice would be unequivocally in favor of the Bills on every conceivable occasion. This recent termination has been a development long anticipated. I must confess, my perspective shifted somewhat just last evening, leaning toward attributing greater responsibility to the general manager as opposed to Sean McDermott himself, and to the fundamental composition of the roster. However, upon sincere reflection, I believe the moment has arrived for both parties to part ways. The reality that Sean McDermott failed to guide a single defensive player to a Pro Bowl selection is profoundly concerning. Equally troubling is his apparent inability to collaborate effectively with the general manager in constructing an appropriate roster. Furthermore, the consistent failure to elevate the defensive unit to a level we have witnessed from coaches like Robert Saleh is a significant shortcoming. It is, quite simply, a substantial issue. As Colin rightly underscored, Josh Allen is a quarterback who feels compelled to force the action on every single snap. This is a fundamental characteristic of his play that McDermott should have intimately understood and managed. Take, for instance, the conclusion of the first half in that critical game. Josh Allen, pressing to make something happen, attempted to create a play which resulted in a costly fumble. The fact that McDermott did not instruct him to simply take a knee in that scenario becomes utterly indefensible. You are dealing with a quarterback of Josh Allen's caliber, a player in the tier of Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. These athletes will inevitably push boundaries to the extreme. This is why we observed Sean McVay with Matthew Stafford take a knee despite having 13 seconds remaining in overtime and 2 timeouts at their disposal, positioned around the 35-yard line. Stafford possesses the arm talent to potentially advance them into field goal range. They had the timeouts. They had receivers like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Watching live, I was incredulous, thinking this was insanity. Why not take a shot? It was only upon later reflection that the brilliance of the decision crystallized. It was the correct strategic move. That decision was predicated on a holistic trust in the team, trust in the offense, trust in the defense, trust in the collective unit. It was a refusal to risk a bizarre, fluky turnover because Matthew Stafford, in his competitive drive, would undoubtedly try to manufacture a play. A superior coach does not place his quarterback in a precarious situation where an interception or a strip sack could occur, especially considering Stafford had already put the ball on the ground multiple times in that contest, however fortuitously recovered, and had made several errant throws. I tallied approximately 8 turnover-worthy plays. McVay's conclusion was, "We are taking a knee. We are proceeding to overtime." That is intelligent football. It demonstrates an understanding of his personnel, a quarterback perpetually seeking the big play, and represents quintessential game management. It is the epitome of managing a contest. It is these minute, yet critical details that have persistently hampered the Buffalo Bills. To reiterate, the infamous 13-second game remains the paramount case study in mismanagement. Consider the fact that a defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio could join the Eagles, rectify that defensive unit, and subsequently orchestrate a performance that utterly dismantled and dominated the Kansas City Chiefs, a feat the Bills have been incapable of achieving for years. That singular instance, I firmly believe, was highlighted when the Eagles secured the Super Bowl in the 2023 season. It exposed the fallacy of the common excuse. Well, we ran into Patrick Mahomes. What can you do? The Eagles demonstrated that such reasoning is absolute nonsense. They proved it is not an insurmountable obstacle. Their defense stifled that Chiefs offense. Similarly, the Denver Broncos offense, under Sean Payton and Bo Nix, executed their game plan with efficacy. While Payton and Nix deserve ample praise, the underlying principle stands. You either validate your worth or you fail to do so. This dismissal was a significant decision. Again, ironically, I found myself entertaining the contrary notion late last evening, around 3 a.m., pondering whether retaining Sean McDermott might be feasible, perhaps if the organization moved on from the general manager. I was beginning to warm to that possibility. However, the overwhelming sensation remained that in 9 out of 10 contests for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen was required to perform flawlessly. Any instance of imperfection from Allen typically translated to a negligible chance of victory. In a game such as this latest one, where Allen was distinctly not at his peak and could have performed considerably better, the collective team was incapable of elevating their performance to compensate. They could not rise to the occasion. Examining other historic moments for elite quarterbacks in NFL annals, whether Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, etc., reveals a pattern. Many of their most legendary performances were preceded by suboptimal plays. When Patrick Mahomes captured his first Super Bowl, he committed 2 interceptions. Yet, he was afforded the opportunity to atone for those errors later in the game through his own subsequent play, through strategic play calling, and through the elevated performance of his teammates. This narrative repeats with Brady, Brett Favre, Manning, whomever you wish to cite. In this particular game, Josh Allen's imperfections, the interception and the fumble, were catastrophically magnified because the supporting structure failed. For example, A failure to execute a proper chip block by Khalil Shakir contributed to another fumble, where Josh Allen was blindsided, as Tony Romo pointed out, because a player executed his assignment so poorly it compromised the offensive line's ability to block the defender. Allen, operating under the reasonable trust that his protection would hold, was consequently demolished. This is a theme we have ironically witnessed throughout these playoffs. One need only recall TJ Watt impacting CJ Stroud or Drake May's fumbling issues. Then, James Cook fumbles. That is devastating. You encounter 3 or 4 dropped passes. That is devastating. Subsequently, there is the interception intended for Brandon Cooks. Regardless of the debate over whether it was a true interception or an incompletion, the point becomes moot. It is clearly not Josh Allen's fault if a defender wrestles the ball away from his receiver post-catch. While one might critique the play call initially, the execution was there. Allen delivered a perfect pass, and it was stripped away. This is the nuanced conversation that often gets lost, as people simplistically cite Allen's turnover count. The fact is, Josh Allen has a notable history of not turning the ball over in playoff settings. In this game, he amassed roughly 350 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 66 rushing yards. Yes, the one interception was unequivocally a mistake. The one fumble was unequivocally a mistake. However, with proficient coaching, you potentially only have the one interception as Allen's genuine poor decision. The fumble might never have transpired if the instruction was to take a knee. With no timeouts and minimal time, scheming for Allen to scramble is somewhat irrational. With competent coaching, you potentially emerge victorious from that game, even when your quarterback is not executing a flawless, perfect performance. That is the transformative power of elite coaching. If James Cook does not fumble, if Khalil Shakir properly executes his chip block, if Mecole Hardman secures the catch, if Brandon Cooks maintains possession, you likely win that game. It resides in the details. It is absolutely in the details. This elucidates why an organization like the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots historically, but chiefly the Chiefs in the contemporary era, deserves immense credit for being so meticulously prepared in these pivotal moments. Even when a game plan is imperfect, even when Patrick Mahomes is not at his superlative best, even if Andy Reid cannot conjure the perfect play, and even if Steve Spagnuolo's defense faces adversity, they find a way. When the scheme works, they execute. When it falters, the players possess the capability to overcome because individuals consistently make pivotal plays. Everyone elevates their performance, and a substantial component of that is the coaching ecosystem cultivated by Spagnuolo and Reid, who repeatedly position their players for success. This systemic strength is why a quarterback can throw multiple interceptions early in a contest and still overcome the deficit. It is why in the 2023 season, Patrick Mahomes could launch a dreadful interception against the San Francisco 49ers, yet his defense immediately responded, preventing any points, thereby setting the stage for decisive plays later. Recall Andy Reid dialing up a quarterback draw for Mahomes at a juncture no one anticipated, utilizing his mobility. It is the entire ecosystem and culture of a team that comprehends how to triumph in consequential moments. The Buffalo Bills simply lack that understanding. And, in all candor, that deficiency falls squarely upon the shoulders of the coaching staff. It is unequivocally a coaching failure. Thus, there we have it. Sean McDermott is relieved of his duties after 9 seasons. I anticipate he will secure new employment rapidly. He could potentially achieve positive results with a franchise like the Las Vegas Raiders because he is a stabilizer. He possesses the acumen to establish a culture, perhaps not a championship-caliber culture at the very apex, but he understands how to institute structure and stability. He is proficient in organization. However, he likely represents a more stern, rigid iteration of a coach like John Harbaugh or Mike McCarthy. All these coaches understand how to administer a team, how to organize, how to instill comfort in a roster, how to assemble a coaching staff, how to manage the myriad intricate responsibilities of coaching that extend far beyond mere X's and O's. Yet, they perhaps do not quite ascend to that subsequent echelon occupied by a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan. In my view, one of the most consequential errors the Bills organization made throughout these 9 seasons was not dismissing McDermott sooner and pursuing a candidate like Ben Johnson when the opportunity was more ripe. My primary concern had been regarding a viable successor. But the situation now presents intriguing possibilities. If they successfully recruit a premier offensive mind like Brian Daboll, or if they refrain from limiting their search solely to offensive specialists. There existed a hypothetical path where McDermott was retained and an elite offensive coordinator was secured. That would have been a plausible avenue, because any available coordinator would likely view the opportunity to work with Josh Allen in Buffalo as supremely attractive. If a prospect like Mike McDaniel years ago were choosing between a head coaching position with the Arizona Cardinals and an offensive coordinator role with Josh Allen and the Bills would be the selection every time. Nevertheless, that option remains. If they appoint a formidable defensive-minded head coach, such as a Brian Flores or a Jim Harbaugh, they can still attract any of the premier offensive coordinators. Alternatively, they could hire the offensive-minded head coach and exert maximum effort to secure the best available defensive coordinator. Numerous avenues remain open. It will be captivating to observe, especially given the current plethora of job vacancies, a somewhat chaotic landscape. Those are my comprehensive reflections. I am exceedingly eager to hear your own. What are your thoughts concerning the Buffalo Bills' decision to terminate Sean McDermott? What implications does this hold for the franchise, the organization, and Josh Allen? How should they progress forward? Please share your perspectives in the comment section below. I assiduously read every single comment. Whether you concur or vehemently disagree, let us engage in dialogue. Let us have some spirited debates, but ultimately, let us enjoy the discourse. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are cultivating a phenomenal community here and would be delighted for you to join. I aspire to build something with which we all feel a genuine connection, something we are genuinely thrilled to be a part of, and I believe we are making significant strides toward that objective. Also, please do not forget to like this video, as it substantially assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you immensely for your time. I look forward to our next interaction.